So how's that for no drama? It has been a long time since FAU has won a game, well, after 15 minutes of football. That is a good feeling, and it's always a good feeling to be with all of you. The Florida Atlantic Voice, presented by Robes Law Group, our presenting partners, ROBES, robeslawgroup.com, personal injury lawyers for all your personal injury needs, ROBES, Robes Law Group, robeslawgroup.com. Your final, Florida Atlantic 53, UAB 33, and Robbie, Lastella, New Era Preps, who joins me day after every single, well, this year, Sunday. Some years, it'll probably be Friday. It'll probably be, Saturday. But this year, with all Saturday games, it is always going to be Sunday, the day after Florida Atlantic Voice edition, the UAB edition, a happy edition, a gleeful edition. And Robbie, like I just said, I don't know about you, but I cannot, against an FBS team, I cannot remember the last time. It probably is the 2019 Conference USA Championship game where it felt like FAU had a win after one quarter of play. It was 21-0 after one. This game was over. This game was absolutely over on Saturday night.
Yeah, it was quick. It was fun. That's the exact type of game you wanted to have in front of the parents, in front of the founders, in front of the Hall of Famers, everybody who was everybody for FAU athletics, for FAU as a community, was at the university. I don't know if all those parents came into the stadium. We know how it goes, but they were around, and they hear about it, right? They hear about a 20-point win, whether or not they were in the stadium. I hope they were, because it was a good environment in there. I love seeing the end zones. They were definitely more filled than they have been all year. And like you said, they came out fast. They matched UAB, or they outraced UAB early in the beginning of that game. 3 touchdowns to 3 punts, 4 touchdowns to 4 punts, actually. And then UAB was able to score, intercept, and make it a little bit close there. But, you know, the FAU of old, they wouldn't have scored right there before the half. And UAB would have gotten the ball back. They would have marched down. They would have scored. It would have went in the locker room 28-21. Everyone would have been biting their fingernails, and who knows what would have happened. But
I mean, you're totally right about that, Robbie. Like you literally took out of my mouth what I was going to say, because yes, it did get a little dicey at 28-14. UAB scores 2 touchdowns in a 2:30 span after a Caden Veltkamp interception. They score that second touchdown, but you're right, FAU of old, and you've lost all momentum going into the locker room. Instead, Florida Atlantic just slashes its way down the field again and is able to restore a 35-14 lead at the break. That's just a good professional football approach. And I'm glad you mentioned the crowd too. The announced attendance was over 20,000, and this was not some nonsense made up 22,000 like Rice tried to pull last week in Houston. This was a legitimate 20,000 strong, give or take a couple of hundred. That tailgate, and Robbie, I'm sure you saw it. We're both up on the 6th floor. You're on the writer's side. I'm in my broadcast booth, but behind the north end zone where the student tailgate takes place, it looked crowded. It looked sweaty. It looked messy. It looked weird. That's awesome. Like that is what we're going for there. And I know that family weekend, the students bring out their parents. The parents are able to relive former Rager glory. I understand how that goes, but that was a good sign. That needs to happen more often, because within reason, the more rowdy and the more gross that thing looks, the better for everybody involved.
Yeah, you know, it was alumni weekend actually for the fraternity. So, you know, I made my trip into that mosh pit, that madness for a little bit anyway. And you know, I probably walked into the press box and people probably were looking at me like, this kid looks like he's what's wrong with this guy? No, but yeah, it's good. It's great. It's great energy, right? That's always been the thing that you can't deny about FAU football games is they tailgate, and they tailgate well. And, you know, keep winning games like this, keep bringing the energy. The students will pick up on that. It took a little while for basketball, right? Like, I feel like nobody really understood what Dusty and them were doing on that CUSA run until all of a sudden it was the end of the season. They're like, wait a minute, we're like almost undefeated. But point being is, eventually, next home game they blow out whoever it is, I'm blanking, by 20 points. All of a sudden, everyone's starting to notice. So huge win, and yeah, in front of everyone that's important to FAU athletics and the fans. It doesn't get much better than that. You would have liked them to put up 70, maybe shut them out. But hey, it is an FBS team at the end of the day. I'm happy they were able. They did a lot with a little captain offensive line out with appendix. Yeah. You got.
Xavier Terrell.
Yeah. Thank you. I was blanking there. You missed Xavier Terrell. Jamari Sands was limited. You're missing 2 wide receivers who, although JR wasn't with you around, they don't really play too much. So still, those are guys you have on the goal line. And there's more injuries as well. So that was a big injury lofty list there. And they overcame it. I didn't tell they had any injuries. As far as I could tell, they looked as healthy as possible. And I think for them to overcome those injuries, for them to not skip a beat, I think that was a really good performance.
Go ahead and hit the chat, by the way, if you're watching this live on Twitter or on YouTube. Go ahead, hit the chat with your observations or your questions for Robbie and I. And again, this will come out full audio version later today, wherever you get your podcast. The Florida Atlantic Voice, presented by Robes Law Group. Craig chiming in the chat first up. Let's go. It's good to have an enjoyable style of football to watch. That's the thing too, is yesterday was aesthetically pleasing. When this offense gets it going, it's aesthetically pleasing. It's, I like lurching down the field as long as it results in points, but FAU also, per possession, is hitting 1 or 2 big plays, chunk plays to get themselves in a position to score. Yesterday was a pleasing mix, a satisfying mix of big plays and also a physical run game. And I guess the run game is where we should really hone in on first. It is no secret that Zach Kittley's been looking for it. It is no secret that Robbie Lastella and Ken LaVicka and FAU fans have been looking for it. It was reinforced this week, though, when Zach Kittley flat out said, we need to find a way to get this better. And was it perfect? No. But will you take 147 yards on 33 carries, averaging 4.5 per carry, and that got a little bit watered down because FAU was just running out clock on the final possession? Yeah, it got watered down a little bit. You'll take it. It's not the number that Zach Kittley wants. I think he'd probably like to see it more in like the 170s, 180s, if I'm taking an educated guess here. But when you have your third string running back taking a bulk of the carries, he sets a career high. He has 3 touchdowns as well. All things considered, that is a pretty solid game on the ground for FAU.
100%. Kaden Shields-Dutton has kind of been that guy now for the past 2 years where everyone's like, yeah, we got this guy. He's coming up. Like last year we heard about him and it was like, not ready yet, but he's got it. He's got that what we saw is exactly what everyone since Tom Herman era has been saying about Kaden Shields-Dutton. He is a physical runner. He is fast, though, at the same time. He's not going out there. He's not a bowling ball, but at the same time, he's got that bowling ball attribute and speed as well. I think it was against Rice where he had like an 11-yard carry just to get him down to like the 2, I think it was. But on that play, I saw it. I was like, yeah, he just pushed over 2 defenders and accelerated quickly. So he's got that in him. We've been waiting for he's been waiting for his time to kind of shine. He's had a couple guys in front of him now for years. So that was his time to shine. And, I don't know if Kittley will abandon Xavier Terrell or Jamari Sands due to injury, but what this does is gives them a third option consistently to go to in that backfield. And, with Terrell and Sands being a little banged up, that's huge because outside of those 3, Ethan Irvin is next up, and he is a freshman. Yeah. He's very talented, but you never know.
And then Joshua Harriet, right?
That is it. I'm sure there's a walk-on somewhere after that, but you don't want to get to that situation because then me and Christian Prosher are in the walk-ons.
I was going to say, you've got a COVID year, though, so you're eligible.
Yeah, sign me up. We ran the wing T offense back at St. John Paul High School here in Boca Raton, but I don't know if I could translate that to the air raid. We'd have to work on some things, but no, I'm sure they'll make it work. Fingers crossed, no more injuries here. But Caden did a great job jumping in there, and 3 touchdowns, first time since Zuberi's 3-touchdown game last year. Yeah. We got slowly but surely we're pumping out some running backs here at FAU. RBU, Coach Perkins. Let's keep it rolling.
I would suspect, even though we saw him in a limited capacity, go Owls in the chat. Any word if some of the injured players are going to be back for USF? I would suspect that at least Sands will be pretty close to full carry capacity. And it was a little bit worrisome, and I saw you tweet this. Kaden Shields-Dutton went down with an injury in the second half. Fortunately, 2 plays later, he was back on the field, and he looked unlimited for the rest of the game. But I saw that, and we mentioned it on the broadcast, and you have that pit and stomach. Oh, good Lord, what now? But it seems like he's fine, and I do think, again, that Jamari Sands, and it was good to see him actually get some action, and he looked better in the second half than he did in the first half, and maybe that's because he had more carries, but I do think you're at least going to have 2, for the most part, fully healthy running backs. And then the Xavier Terrell one surprised me. I did not see that coming. When I saw the injury report, that was a legit shocker to me, so hopefully that's just a short-term thing. But Kaden Shields-Dutton coming on like he did, that first touchdown run was bruising from Kaden Shields-Dutton. And it at least it tells you have 3 very solid running back options. It's just it feels better when they're healthy. The offensive line did the job as well. I don't want to completely ignore them. And I know you mentioned Alex Atcabbage being out. Okeno King came on and performed really well. I mean, this was the best offensive line showing. This is consecutive weeks now that the offensive line has had its best showing. At Rice and against UAB, there has been marked improvement. I'm not saying that means things are going to bode overwhelmingly well at USF. We're talking different caliber of opponent, but at least you can check the boxes saying that was better against Rice, and then it was even better against UAB. And, at this point of a year, you're looking for incremental progress, and that offensive line has made incremental progress.
100%. Jacavian Nonar struggled, let's be honest, here in those first couple games of the season. Yep. And these last 2 games, he is not at all. He is a completely different tackle over there at blindside, and I think that is a big part of why the offense is improving, right? We saw the improvement with Scarlett Jean there, and then we were like, okay, well, maybe to keep him there. But, Zach Kitley didn't bench a guy doing an injury. Respect that, and it paid off because Nonar has come in here these past 2 games and has played his best 2 games of this season, which, that is huge to have because then you don't have to move Scarlett there. You can keep him at left guard, and if Nonar can play as he's been playing the past 2 games, you've got 2 really quality offensive linemen there on that left side of the line, including Vinny at center. I mean, You can really start pushing things that way. And, the right side of the line has been improving as well. Alex was out this game, but Daughtry has been improving as well. So, the whole line as a whole has really started to pick things up. Overall, 4 pressures total against UAB. No sacks allowed. 2 quarterback hits, 2 pressures for Nonar, 1 for Daughtry Richardson, and 1 for Vinny at center. So really, really strong performance for them. And, we'll gotta keep that up against a USF team that they will definitely have some talent there off the edge. So we'll definitely have to see kind of how they scheme that up to kind of give Caden some more time there in the pocket. But overall, definitely much better than the start to the season for sure.
Aaron in the chat, the pregame was nice. The breezeway was filled with fans, alumni, parents, and students. It was the vision that the late great coach Howard Schnellenberger had when he pushed for the stadium. It's funny that Aaron mentions that. So Chris Newbold, my broadcast partner, who his senior year was 2011, the first year of the stadium. And Schnellenberger, you know how the Owl Walk, and there have been different places where the Owl Walk takes place. Taggart had it, and I believe Taggart had it. You walk in on the southwest side of the stadium, and he had all of his players touch the Schnellenberger statue. Most of the time, it is come in the northeast side of the stadium, and that's where they come in this time around for the yacht walk as well. Schnellenberger had the players walk from the library to the stadium, and Newbold was saying that sucked. That was miserable. That's not a short walk from the library to the stadium, and that's how, because Schnellenberger, everything about him was grandiose and it was a spectacle. Of course, you had to make it like a half-mile parade from the library to the stadium. So Aaron's comment in the chat here made me think about that, because Newbold literally during a break yesterday was like, God, was that a long walk? And then you're tired by the time you get into the locker room. Matthew in the chat, trick plays worked this week. There was only really one trick play this week that FAU ran, and yeah, it absolutely worked. Now, we're talking, of course, about the Easton Messer 48-yard touchdown throw to Jay-Sean Platt. That was the third FAU touchdown of the first quarter. This was set up by a pitch to Messer on the very first possession. If I'm not mistaken, it was like the fourth play of the opening possession. It was a pitch right to Messer. He gained a couple of yards off of it along the right edge. This was the exact same play coming off of a wonderful Asaad Waseem reception to put FAU at the 48 of UAB. And Messer takes the pitch, and then suddenly he winds up and he throws a perfect, could not have had better touch, could not have been a better trajectory. Caden Veltkamp could not throw anything more superior. That's how perfect this was. And Veltkamp had some perfect throws of his own in this game as well. But Jay-Sean Platt gets behind the DB, catches it in stride. All he has to do is just sort of float into the end zone. That is as expertly executed of a trick play as you're going to find. And it's not like Platt was just standing by himself. UAB had a sense of what was happening. It's not like some of those where the wide receiver on a wide receiver pass just has to wait for it like a punt and have it settle into his arms because there's no one within 20 yards of him. This was just an excellent throw from Easton Messer. And from a pure passer standpoint, Zach Kitley's got to be real proud of his wide receiver for throwing such a good ball. Perfect spiral, perfect touch, right into the arms of his fellow wide receiver. That was pretty. That was really, really pretty. That might be the best wide receiver throw I've ever seen on a play like that.
Yeah, at first I was looked down, typed something, and I look up and I see it, and I was actually recording it just because whatever. And I didn't look at the recording, and I was like, oh, what a throwback. And then I was like, oh, that was Easton. I was like, wow. So, and what's crazy is he has now a passing touchdown before a receiving touchdown so far this year, which the receiving touchdowns will come. I'm sure there's a lot of gambling people and like betting and fantasy people who are probably like pissed off somewhere because Easton Messer was like, one of, if in college, like fantasy world, he was like a first round pick. But it's just funny to me that somehow now he has.
Didn't he have one against FIU? Didn't he have his only receiving touchdown against FIU?
Against that?
I think it was a hitch to the right side.
Okay, I'm blank. Yes, he did.
But the point is, he has as many passing touchdowns as he has receiving touchdowns this year, and he came into last night's game with the most receptions of any player in the country. Think about it.
So that was going to be my point. Although, the touchdowns necessarily haven't been there, he has made up for in every kind of other facet. He has been the go-to guy that has been described for Caden. He's a chain mover. He does the little things as well. He'll take a little screen and try to, turn it upfield, break a couple tackles. So he's definitely been playing well. And what I really noticed was the difference here in these past two games. After double-digit penalties against Memphis and FIU, 6 against Rice, 5 against UAB, and UAB was at 14 for 118. That was bad. But for FA, we sat here and I was not happy with the penalties. I thought interceptions, whatever. Penalties, that's what really was irking me. I'm like, we're getting 15 yarders here left and right. We're doing things that will lead to losses in and out, week in out. They have adjusted. They have cut those in half. Penalties are things mental, and they found a way to overcome that. And so far over the last 2 weeks, it's a clean operation in a lot of departments that wasn't so clean in those first couple of weeks. So credit to them for really kind of battening down the hatches here and turning the season around over the past 2 weeks. Because if they didn't, these last two podcasts would have been a lot more grim.
Yeah. Well, we and I hate to keep bringing this up every week, but it is unbelievably valid. You and I, after the Memphis game, said it, and we've reiterated it. But these 2 weeks were going to be make or break for the season. This was going to be either you're playing for next year or you are going to be playing to try and give yourself a realistic chance at bowl eligibility. And FAU ends up winning both of them. You don't lose both. You don't split. You win both of them. Now 6 games into your season. You're 3-3. You're 2-1 in the American. You've at least done that job before you get into a rough stretch of games here, especially back-to-back, where you go to USF and then you head to Navy, 2 teams that are going to be there at the end, it appears, competing for a conference championship. I don't want to shortchange FAU. They're 2-1 in the league right now. They're above 500. There aren't a ton of teams that can brag about that, but I do think there's realistically some tiers that we've seen so far in the American. Now, those tiers get completely blown away if FAU beats USF next Saturday at Raymond James Stadium. Suddenly, I think that the perspective from the outside is, hold on, maybe this FAU group can be a part of the discussion. I mean, for Zach Kitley, admittedly for him, he's saying, yeah, this is going to be a tough task going to USF, but who knows? Crazier things have happened, and FAU fans just shouldn't pack it in. Say, oh, well, we got the 3-3, so let's just wait until we see UConn and East Carolina and Tulsa. No. Don't do that. Don't do that. Like, this is a rivalry game next week. You never know. And I don't want to jinx it, but yes, USF is awesome, and they're scoring 50 and 60 points, but Byron Brown loves to gift the other team the football on a pretty regular basis. But there's going to be plenty of time to talk about that this week. So when it comes to the defense, I see some hand-wringing on the socials here, and I get it. They have been prone to giving up a big play or two each week. It certainly hurt them against Memphis, got them off to a poor start at Rice. Yes, you gave up 33 points to UAB. Yes, it's only the 3rd time they've done it this season, but there's also a glass half full component to this. FAU in the first half was pretty stellar defensively. One long drive for a touchdown for UAB, the other a super short field after the Caden Veltkamp interception where Easton Messer was wide open. If they complete that RPO, that's a touchdown for Messer. But Zach Kitley said that that's a run 10 out of 10 times on that RPO and said Veltkamp got greedy. So that's where that came into play. But short field, UAB scores there. This was the least amount of yards that UAB has put up against any opponent in 2025. So you can bang your head against the wall and say, oh, FAU gave up 33 points. Keep it in mind that both of us told you before the season started, there might be some shootouts. There might be some 55-45 games. You either have the fortitude to deal with it or not. We knew the defense was very much a work in progress. We knew Brent Dewhurst didn't have maybe the time with the personnel he had to get the install in to build this defense up. But you do hold UAB to its lowest total yardage total, and you have 5 sacks in this game as well. And FAU is getting into the backfield on a very regular basis. So, yeah, are they prone to the big play? Sure. Is that going to be troublesome against USF? Probably. But I can almost assure you that Byron Brown is going to be made uncomfortable many times next Saturday night as well.
Yeah, I mean, credit to USF because they have definitely improved from what we saw last year from them in their offense. And that, was a large part due to Byron being injured. But even when he was in, like you mentioned, he was turning that ball over a lot. So he's definitely bounced back in that department a little bit this year. But still, the defense can put pressure on him and kind of, force those turnovers to happen. And what I like to see is the sacks. Obviously you want your edge rushers to, get involved, but FAU is generating pressure up front. 3 sacks for CJ Doggett. That is exactly what, as he had a good play against FIU and he's made plays here and there, but this was the CJ Doggett game when FAU got him, he was a big piece. He was arguably one of Ohio's best defensive linemen last year, and they won the MAC. Whatever you think of the MAC, but they've always had hard-nosed football players up front there, and CJ Doggett did what he's capable of. But also it wasn't just him. Earl Miller Jr. getting involved late in the game. You've got Tycleen Lumen getting involved. Yeah. Allen getting involved. And on the day, the team as a whole, 11 total pressures, 3 for Doggett, 2 for Earl Miller, 2 for Bryce Langston, and then 1 apiece for Damian Allen, Tycleen Lumen, Gavench Marcelin, and Wilkie. So a balanced effort across the board in the pass rushing department. And, in the early part of the season, we were all like, this looks like the same pass rush from last year. There's nothing. What's going on? Yeah. And then all of a sudden, over the past couple of weeks, adjustments have been made. We talked about this at length last week, but they adjusted against the run. They bounced back. They adjusted against the pass rush. They've now rushed the passer offense. We haven't seen the turnovers like we saw in the first couple of weeks. We haven't seen the penalties like we saw. So you can find different areas to nitpick, but look at it again in a week, 2 weeks, and see if they've improved on that, because so far that's what this team has been showing. And I think that's all you can ask. That's all you can ask in a year one team is you're going to have problems. If it's perfect in year one, God bless you. But there's going to be problems. And the key to that is overcoming them. And I think FAU, the coaching staff, has found a way to overcome those problems, and credit to them.
I think one thing, though, that Zach Kittley, and he talked about it in the post-game show with us on the Florida Atlantic Sports Network. One thing that's still driving him crazy is the bad timing of secondary penalties that are extending drives on 3rd and 4th down. And those 2 instances happened yesterday against UAB. 3rd and long, you have a pass interference penalty that extends a drive that UAB would score on. And then on 4th down in the second half, FAU commits a pass interference that led to a score for UAB. So those are the types of things still. Yes, the penalty numbers have declined, but still in big moments with a chance to get off the field, there's some grabbing, there's some hooking, there's just some lack of discipline that is upsetting Zach Kittley, and he's a perfectionist. Even when you try and put a sunshiny spin on some things for him, he's going to find a way. Yeah, we got to clean that up. He's a realist, and I really appreciate about them. He's not going to try and sweet talk you through any of this stuff. If that improves, though, yesterday, we're talking about 14 points that you're taking off the board. The way UAB found the end zone on the 2-point conversion, 16 points are taken off the board, and then it's a bigger rout than it was. And that was a rout last night. Like, that was a blasting of UAB. Even if you felt like at 28-14, you were chewing your fingernails a little bit. But those things need to get a little bit better. But I thought overall, this was a pretty good defensive performance. And I don't think that because FAU gave up 33 points, that was more the nature of the game and the way it was going than it was the defense completely falling apart. And you mentioned some names that have not really played at all this year, at least not an appreciable amount. And they were playing late in the first half. They were getting run early in the 3rd quarter. So it's not like this was just strictly starters that were playing. Darkast says, our defense played really well. The first 20 minutes, they held them scoreless. If we have a 21-point lead or more, I'd love to see a slower tempo so that we can limit teams under 30 every game. Owls up. Yeah, that's interesting about that. I do think that the offense is still enough of a work in progress where Kittley wants to try and keep tempo up, keep the aggressive factor up, because the more reps, the better. It was appreciable, though, in the 3rd quarter and in the 4th quarter, you did not see nearly as much tempo as you saw from Florida Atlantic in the first half. He clearly started to play a little bit of clock game in that spot. So I do think we saw it a little bit. I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this player up, and he is my MVP, and I don't think we talked enough about him last week, and we haven't talked enough about him this season, Robbie. Asaad Waseem is awesome. I mean, he is absolutely yeah, his catch along the sideline that then set up the Easton Messer touchdown throw, where he just box out a DB, makes a hands catch, slides around him. He had a first down reception on FAU's opening drive where he broke 2 tackles. He's extremely elusive, and he takes the top off the defense so easily. He's just faster than everybody he goes against. I am fascinated to see him against the speedy corners of USF. Because, man, this guy is a track star. He's really coming into his own. Him and Veltkamp clearly have a thing that's developing. He was able to find space between 3 defenders at Rice, perfectly thrown ball. He's able to get behind the defense again, and all Veltkamp has to do is put it up for him. What a deep threat he's turning into. He was the MVP of this game, but it's not just the deep ball. You can throw it to him on the edge. He's going to make guys miss. He's not afraid to go over the middle. He had a drop that I know is driving him insane on what would have been a first down on a 3rd and long at the FAU 10 in the second half. The game was still pretty much over at that point, but how good is he? What a find for this coaching staff, Asaad Waseem coming in.
Yeah, the talent was always there. We knew that. Coach Prime's not bringing you if you're not talented. And we see it developing week by week. I mean, he forced 4 missed tackles yesterday. I mean, for comparison, Caden, he forced 7 rushing the ball. How many attempts? 15 times. So Asaad on 7 receptions, on 4 of them, he made a defender miss. I mean, what more can you ask? He's making contested catches. He's putting the shake and bake on receiver or on DBs. And man, I mean, he's speedy down the sidelines. He's not, you mentioned that one drop, but he's not drop prone. The catch he made against Rice last week, that's a ball that gets dropped a lot. You see when the quarterbacks give him a perfect ball, but it just goes right between the breadbasket on the ground. That didn't happen. He caught it. And so that's the type of receiver everyone was like, oh, Easton Messer is going to get all these deep balls. Asaad has really stepped in, especially with the injuries that we've seen develop, unfortunately, for Quincy and JR. Those were supposed to be 2 big outside guys. Asaad has been on the outside, and he's given them the same deep ball threat and maybe more than Quincy or JR would have been able to provide. So Asaad has really, really stepped into a role, and I think it'll only expand. Got to find a way to get both him, Messer, and Platt involved, and that's exactly what we've been seeing so far. I like the way they've been spreading the ball around a lot.
There's a couple more things I want to get to. I know that if you're watching this live, Robbie is going to head to Dolphins Chargers. If you're listening to this after the fact, that's why you're not going to hear Robbie in a couple of minutes. But a couple of things that stood out to me. Jabari Smith with a touchdown catch. Jabari has not seen much action at all. That was his first reception of the year, the touchdown that he caught from Caden Veltkamp. How about that? 1-for-1 touchdown. That's not a bad stat line for Jabari Smith, and it comes on another perfectly executed RPO. Veltkamp is starting to get real comfortable with his decision-making in that RPO. He had one mistake, and that was the interception that he threw late in the second quarter. For a second straight week, we have talked about how FAU had punt blocks for touchdowns, 2 of them in consecutive games. I'm not sure that in all of college football, there are more than 5 teams that have ever done that in the history of the sport. FAU in back-to-back games, consecutive weeks, have hit 4th down in medium or 4th down and long big play touchdowns. Last week, it was Asaad Waseem on 4th and 5, and then against UAB, Dom Henry got into the mix on a perfectly thrown ball, and he's able to get behind the defense and get into the end zone. That does not happen often, where you're scoring not just on 4th down plays. Typically, that's near the goal line, but FAU's doing it at about the 35 to 40 to 45 yard line because there's the aggressiveness and you just have the defense on their heels. And then another 4th down conversion, 4th and short in the second half, in the fourth quarter, where it looked like everybody's expecting Kaden Shields-Dutton to get the ball on a 4th and 1, and instead a shovel pass. I mean, just a play that made me feel things tingly inside. Shovel pass inside to Easton Messer, and he easily picks up the first down and gets FAU close to a goal-to-go situation. All of those pieces of execution, that's hard to stop no matter the team.
Yeah, they definitely, I remember when we couldn't, they were struggling to get the field goal operation going, and now all of a sudden, that's clean. Going back to Jabari Smith. I mean, last year he was arguably a top 3 receiver on the team, and I don't know the whole situation or whatnot, but I can't imagine that's a good thing on the mental to go from that to sitting, but. Doesn't look like it's affecting him at all. I mean, he comes in there, he plays week, and he does his job, and you do your job week in and week out, eventually good things will happen. And we saw that be the case against UAB. So credit to Jabari for keep on swimming, keeping his head above water. And eventually, plays like that will develop for you. So credit to him. And there's that's what we were kind of talking about. That wide receiver room is insanely deep. I mean, they still got Joe Young hiding around in there. We've seen him a little bit here and there, but that's a guy who you can throw the ball up to, and we've seen him make contested catches. So, God forbid there's no injuries in that room, but there is depth if it does happen. So that's been it. I've liked, right away in the first game of the season, we were like, 15 receptions for Messer. They're just going to be targeting him, and the offense is going to struggle when he gets locked up. We've seen them slowly expand the offense week by week by week. Last week it was Kurtz. This week it was Asaad. Next week, who knows? Maybe it's Jabari Smith. I mean, last year FAU went there 2 years ago. I don't think anyone expected Daniel Richardson to go into USF and light him up and look like the greatest show on turf. That happened. They did, and they won, and that started a lovely relationship between Mr. Golesh and Mr. Herman. I wonder if Alex is gonna wipe the slate clean, or if he's gonna give Kelly the same treatment there from what Tom did. I don't know. I'm gonna keep that one in the back of my mind for sure, but. And anything's possible going into USF next week. Although I'm not going to say it's likely they go in there and knock them off. Play a good game. Don't turn the ball over. Don't commit egregious penalties. Good things can happen. We'll see.
You said the name Michael Kirch, and I got some messages late last night. Oh, where was Kirch? Because he had his breakout performance against Rice, the 82 receiving yards. It's not going to happen every single game. This was not a game where you needed the tight ends to catch the football. There was plenty of space for the receivers to get that job done. If you want to hang your hat on something with the tight ends, go back and watch Kaden Shields-Dutton second touchdown run, where on the left side, Kirch and Martavius Collins are both lined up, and they both produced the lead blocks that led to Kaden Shields-Dutton having the hole on a pitch outside to get into the end zone. So just because they weren't catching footballs doesn't mean that they weren't executing, and that was a perfect example of doing your job outside of catching the ball. That 2 tight end set, and UAB didn't stand a chance on that.
No, although we were honoring Harrison Bryant, we're not going to see the offense feed Kirch in that similar way yet. Who knows what happens here down the stretch? Maybe he heats up, maybe he starts becoming that go-to guy. Right now, that's not his role in the offense. But it can be if the game plan dictates for it. If they are leaving the middle of the field open for him and he's making plays, you'll see Caden getting him the ball just like they did against Rice. You're not going to see the offense force feed him the ball. He's a talented player. He is not Harrison Bryant yet. So they will work him into the offense when necessary, but he'll keep his head down. He will block. He will do whatever this offense needs, and they will reward him with some touchdowns, some big plays over the middle when it dictates for it.
All right. We'll let Robbie depart the proceedings here. And again, if you have concerns about the FAU defense, may I present to you the Dolphins defense against, yes, the Chargers backfield is banged up, but that did not stop the Panthers from running all over the Dolphins last weekend. Any parting thoughts for yourself, Robbie Lastella?
I just want to say it again. Credit to the fans who showed up. That was the best attended game of the year. I love the energy. I love seeing the founders out there. Katrina was giving me some tidbits, and and it's just cool to see everything kind of come together for that week. The Hall of Famers, the parents who brought their students to this school, and Coach Schnellenberger, obviously. So it was just a really good week from that perspective. You don't want to lose that game. You lose that game, and then all of a sudden everyone's like, "Oh, we stink again."
Yeah.
But so credit to them for doing their job, and I just want to caution people to. Although USF, like you mentioned, don't pack it in, don't expect a loss. Whatever happens in that game, keep the mental on the fact that FAU has had some stinky losses this year, and they've bounced back from them. So whatever happens in this game, FAU will find a way to adjust and bounce back. But don't doubt FAU goes in there and kind of gives them a ball game like they did Memphis. And if they can avoid a death quarter, who knows? But
yeah.
But I agree. I'm a neutral for this game. I'm a New York Giants fan supporter. I'm just going with my guy Drew, who's a Dolphins fan. So hopefully they give him some run defense, because I know they need it.
Sunscreen and hydration, Robbie. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you next Sunday, day after. Okay.
All right, Ken. Take care. Go Owls.
All right, Robbie Lastella, New Era Preps. We're still going here on the Florida Atlantic Voice, and again, Monday nights at Beer Garden in Boca Raton. It is Monday Night Live, where we give out our individual position awards from the game prior, which will be the UAB contest, and then we will also look ahead to USF. So that starts 6:00 every Monday Night Live at Beer Garden in Boca Raton. Aaron, why did the refs not call unnecessary roughness on UAB when Veltkamp slid during one of the touchdown drives? The reason for that is the officials deemed that Veltkamp slid late, and the tackler, the defender, didn't have time to alter his body, so it was contact that was unavoidable. And FAU got a similar call that went in favor of them, with Veltkamp maybe a little bit of a late slide against Rice that resulted in a personal foul against Rice, but didn't get it this time around. I didn't have much of an issue with it. It was probably borderline, and Veltkamp did commit himself a little bit late. So that's why that got overturned. To be quite honest, you remember last year in the opener at Michigan State, where Cam Fancher drew 4 late hit penalties against the Spartans. I mean, some of those were questionable. Of course, we were pleased to get the benefit of the doubt on all of them, because that for a while in that game was FAU's best offense. Cam Fancher taking bludgeoning to his temples and to his cerebral cortex. But after the game, Tom Herman flat out said, we need to work with Cam Fancher about that, because he is sliding late, and we're going to lose him 2 games into the season if he keeps that up. So it wasn't egregious what UAB did, just like on probably 2 of the 4 last year. It wasn't egregious what Michigan State did. It wasn't all that egregious for what Rice did last week. You take it when you can get it, but nothing put Caden Veltkamp in peril. What is most impressive, if we're talking about hits to the head, illegal hits by the opponent, Easton Messer throwing that football to Jay-Sean Platt, that 48-yard touchdown that, again, was a dime. That thing fell from heaven perfectly. It's a utopia type throw for Easton Messer. He was absolutely blasted with a targeting hit from his left-hand side. That ends up being his blind side. I mean, he took that thing right in the side of the helmet and was able to keep his composure. He bounced right back up. The end for UAB that delivered the hit ended up being ejected from the game for targeting. But man, that's it. Everything about that operation, from setting the play up 2 possessions before to then the execution of that play, the perfection of the throw from a shorter statured wide receiver, Jay-Sean Platt getting behind the defense and just letting the ball fall into his arms, and Messer does it all as a defender is wrecking him, bulldozing him from his blind side. It's just absolutely excellent. Absolutely excellent. What FAU was able to do on that trick play with Easton Messer. It was Hall of Fame weekend, which was awesome for me. I emceed the Hall of Fame banquet on Friday night, the induction banquet on Friday night at the Schmidt Family Complex, and 8 inductees went in. One posthumously, Capri Grotowski, FAU Beach volleyball founder. Very emotional. An outstanding evening. Erica Brock, beach volleyball. Mike McKenna, baseball. Karen Gray, one of the first All-Americans. Women's golfer, one of the first All-Americans in FAU athletics history. Greg Gant, FAU basketball all-time leading scorer. And then 3 former FAU football players, Trey Hendrickson, Harrison Bryant, Mackey Award winner 2019, and Dijon Smith, who is the all-time interceptions leader at Florida Atlantic. Obviously, of all of those names that I just mentioned, there are 4 in particular that I knew better than the other ones, and that's simply because, well, I've been the play-by-play voice of FAU football and FAU basketball for forever at this point. Let me start with Greg Gant. I have not seen him physically in the flesh since he graduated from FAU in 2013. That's the year he set the all-time scoring record at FAU. He did it on a Thursday night at Troy in the first half. I definitely don't forget that. But it was awesome to see Greg and his wife. Greg has been in Spain for a very long time, most of his professional career now. Met his wife over there. I'd be shocked if he ever moved back to the States. He is a tried and true Spaniard now in every sense. He lives in Ibiza now. Life is pretty good for him, and he's coming off of a season where he averaged over 13 points a game. But I also was touched to see his mom. And the reason I say that is Greg Gant, born and raised in Gainesville, won a state championship at Gainesville High before he came down to Boca Raton and played at FAU. But his family would drive down from Gainesville to Boca for every single home game of Greg Gant's career. I mean, think about that. Driving from South Florida to Gainesville, you might as well be driving to like Georgia. Yeah, the longest drive before I moved to Florida that I ever remember was going west to east through Pennsylvania. That took forever. Going from South Florida to Gainesville, South Florida to Jacksonville, those are significantly worse drives. At least you have some hills and some different terrain in Pennsylvania making that drive. In Florida, just flat and swampy, and you're probably going to be rained on a lot during the course of your trip. And Greg Gant's family and his mom made that trip every single home game, and she was at this induction ceremony, and it was just great to see her. And it brought back a lot of memories, and it wasn't just his mom. Greg Gant also had his former teammates there. Alex Tucker, all-time assist leader in FAU basketball history. Dylan O'Sullivan, who is one of the most beloved players at FAU. You might not remember the name. He didn't play an awful lot, but what a great just locker room guy to be there. Several managers from Greg's time came back. That's rare. The managers, the support staff came out. Jordan McCoy, Andre Madison, they were all there to honor Greg Gant. So it was a lot of fun to see all of them. And then there are the 3 football players. Dijon Smith, I've talked to him since he graduated, and he's still the highest draft pick in FAU football history. Went 65th overall to the Colts, but an injury on his very first practice in training camp ended all of that. And he can never recover from the injuries that he compiled. Went through it a little bit once his football career disappeared, but he has reinvented himself. He is now a financial planner. He's working with former FAU legend Keith Reeser as well, which is awesome. But Dijon was his acceptance speech was absolutely fantastic. He had all of his family there. Well deserved for Dijon Smith, who I think sometimes gets lost in the what came after him, Lane Kiffin success. But Dijon is one of the best players to ever play at Florida Atlantic. And again, I don't know who's going to break his highest drafted Owl benchmark. We're going to have to see. It's going to be pretty difficult after he set that record. But Dijon, whenever I think of him and I talk to him, there are two moments that stand out most. One, he had the game-clinching interception return for a touchdown against USF in 2013, where FAU went and took down Willie Taggart's USF side at Raymond James Stadium. And then, with the program at its lowest point, period, the program has never been in a worse spot. Not 1-11 in 2011, not last season in Tom Herman's final year. No. The lowest point was after Carl Pelini was fired with 4 games left to go in 2013. Alleged drug use. Police escort him out of the facility along with defensive coordinator Pete Rextis. It's embarrassing. The only headlines that FAU has made in years is, coach fired, drug use, bye week in the Keys with his coaching staff. It was embarrassing at the press conference to announce that Brian Wright was being named interim head coach. I remember Howard Schnellenberger walking out of the stadium shaking his head. Just to see Howard Schnellenberger ashamed of the program he built, that's the lowest point. So FAU gets back out onto the field for the first time a couple of days later against Tulane in Boca. And Dijon Smith, 3 interceptions in that game, including picking off Joe Montana's son, who was playing for Tulane at the time. FAU won that game. They'd win out the remaining 4 games of the season, finished with 6 wins, did not get into a bowl game. But Dijon Smith almost single-handedly lifted FAU up from the depths, its lowest point in program history, and it was an upward trajectory from there. Maybe not from a wins standpoint, but from a base-setting standpoint with Charlie Partridge, it never got back to that point, and Dijon Smith was the trigger point for all of that. So it was awesome to see him, and I missed the guy. I definitely missed the guy. Trey Hendrickson couldn't be there because the Bengals were playing the Packers this week, and the Bengals not having the greatest year. It wasn't going to be a great look of Trey Hendrickson, who also had a notable contract situation in the preseason and throughout training camp. He was going to come in and be a part of it, but opted against it. That's probably the right call. But he had a really, you might have seen it at the game, a really emotional induction speech that was played at the Hall of Fame induction ceremony and then played back on the scoreboard during the game against UAB. So his family was there, mom, dad, brother. Amazing to see them. And then Harrison Bryant. It's been a while since I've seen him. He's been back on campus sporadically since he got into the NFL, but he's on the Texans practice squad currently. He was able to come in. The Texans are on a bye week, so that's why he was able to be there. So it was just awesome to see all of them. Mike Jarvis was there as well, going back to basketball for a moment, thinking about his family. There are some health issues going on with the Jarvis family right now, but Coach Jarvis is still aging extremely well, still active. He's actually coaching a small college down in Miami-Dade this coming season. So still on sidelines, and it was a joy. I mean, an absolute pleasure to see all of these friends and who I consider family that have come back. I haven't seen them in a long time, but it was just a thrill to reconnect with all of them. Florida Atlantic Voice presented by Robes Law Group, ROBES, robeslawgroup.com. So the win over UAB, I think the overlying theme, the storyline is left no drama. If there were 3 words I were to use, left no drama. That's the best you can ask for. Is there plenty to be cleaned up? Sure. Did the defense give up 33 points? Yes, but I don't think that tells the entirety of the story from that game. The offense looks good. Asaad Waseem flat out said that we should have scored 70. And you know what? I agree. FAU had 50 points with 4 minutes left to go in the third quarter. FAU absolutely could have put 70 on the board. That's how thorough a beating it was for FAU. I feel bad for UAB fans. I'm not trying to like extend an olive branch or anything, but think about it. UAB and FAU played on that very field for the 2019 Conference USA Championship game. FAU would win going away. We know that. But UAB under Bill Clark was a wagon. I mean, they were competitive every year. Much different style of football. Very, very slow. Very impose your will. Disciplined. Lack of penalties. That's how UAB won football games. Bill Clark, though, ended up having to retire after COVID. He had a really severe back issue. Couldn't physically withstand the rigors of a college football season. Stepped away. Had an interim coach step in. Helped UAB to a bowl game. That was Brian Vincent, who is now the head coach at Louisiana Monroe. FAU is going to head there at ULM next season. And then Trent Dilfer took this job. It was an interesting hire when it was made. It was an unconventional hire. He had won at the high school level, didn't really have any college coaching experience. And, well, I think we're seeing the aftermath and the ramifications, the consequences of that decision to bring in Trent Dilfer. By all accounts, very good guy. Obviously, Super Bowl champion quarterback. Won't ever have to buy a single dinner or drink up in Baltimore ever again for the rest of his time on earth. But it's just not working. And I'm sad to see, as someone who loves to banter back and forth with UAB fans and appreciates UAB because they have been a phenomenal, if you want to call it, rival to FAU, an opponent of FAU, even before they were conference mates, but on the gridiron, and especially on the hardwood. And this football program, from where it was to Bill Clark, who was tasked with bringing it back from the dead after it was unfairly and unconscionably wiped out, ended there in the Alabama university system. Still one of the stupidest decisions I've ever seen in college football. Bill Clark came in and from scratch rebuilt that thing, with obviously UAB being looked at as a secondary school, and then made it a championship team that won the Conference USA title in 2018, and then FAU was able to grab it from him in 2019. To see what it was under Bill Clark and to see what UAB is now, they're undisciplined. They don't tackle well. They commit a ton of penalties. You guys realize UAB is now 0-15 in road games under Trent Dilfer. In his 2+ seasons at the helm, UAB is 0-15 away from Birmingham. And the exclamation point is going and just getting drubbed by Florida Atlantic on Saturday night. UAB, by the way, with the loss they took, they are going to set the consecutive days record without a road win after that defeat last night, because they have a bye week. They'll welcome Memphis into Birmingham. So by the time all is said and done, the consecutive days without a road win for the UAB football program will surpass 1,064 straight days without a road win. That mark was set when the UAB football program was disbanded and killed. Think about that. The record for most consecutive days without a road win was set only because the UAB had its football program ripped away from it. Now, under Trent Dilfer, it's going to be surpassed because UAB can't win away from Protective Stadium. It's just sad. It does not make you feel good at all. But FAU, this feels good. 3-3, 2-1 in the American. You have 6 games to win 3. And like we always say on this podcast, here on the Florida Atlantic Voice, in year one especially, and I'm taking my cues from Zach Kitley, just get bowl eligibility first. I think it's tough to imagine a realistic world where you're at the level of a Navy, where you've been able to reach the tier of a Tulane. USF, it's been a slow 3-year build under Alex Golish. And yeah, they've made bowl games, but they've done it by the skin of their teeth each year. Alex Golish has, up until this year, not been able to beat the 6-6 allegations. Needed a really favorable schedule to back their way into bowl eligibility the last 2 years, but now you're seeing the fruits of that labor, that struggle pay off because USF is a legitimate title contender. I don't know if FAU is at that caliber of program yet with a first-year head coach, but we're about to see next Saturday night at Raymond James Stadium. We already saw FAU with the probably proverbial fourth conference champion option, and maybe the favorite of all the teams I just mentioned, Memphis. Where you saw Memphis come into Boca Raton, and FAU was only down 5 with 9 minutes left to go to Memphis. So it's an FAU team that, would you love them to win 7-8 games, be in the mix final 3 weeks of the year for a conference championship? Absolutely. But you also, I don't want to lump those expectations on this program and on Zach Kitley in year number 1, considering that this football team hasn't been to a bowl game winning 6 games since 2019. You only won 5 games in 2020. Every team made a bowl game that season. You have not been bowl eligible since 2019. So keep your eye on the immediate goal, which is USF Saturday night, and also you now have 6 games to win 3. 6 games to win 3 and get yourself back to a bowl game with bowl eligibility. FAU took care of business, got the job done on the road at Rice and home against UAB with no drama to pull themselves back after that disappointing final 9 minutes against Memphis to 3-3 on the year and are now above 500 at 2-1 in the American. Not bad, right? Not bad. And certainly reason to feel optimistic with the deepest wide receiver room we have seen since, I don't know. You're having to go back to the Howard Schnellenberger era, I think. And I know it's only 6 games, but find me a FAU wide receiver room, even in the Schnellenberger area. It's deeper than this one. I don't know. I don't know. A quarterback who can clearly sling it. A running game that suddenly has some depth, though you'd love to see some more out of it, and a defense that's starting to get pressure in the backfield on a very consistent, dangerous basis, while acknowledging there's still a lot to work on the defensive side. But it's October 12th. At the time we're talking, 3-3 in the American, 3-3 overall, 2-1 in the American, and you, shy of mid-October, have already matched the same amount of wins that you had all of last year, 3, and you have more conference wins than you had last year with 2. Okay? Pretty good. Pretty good. Monday Night Live, Beer Garden, Boca Raton, 6 o'clock Eastern Time. Me, Ken LaVicka, Damon Arnett. We're going to give our positional awards. Each position, one player gets an award, and we do that tomorrow or Monday night, every Monday night, 6 o'clock, Monday Night Live, Beer Garden and Boca Raton. Come out for their $3 bratwurst. What a deal. What a steal. It's the best bratwurst, the best tube meat, in my opinion, in all of South Florida. And first drink on me. First drink on me, Ken LaVicka, when you come out to Beer Garden and Boca Raton. I'm not joking. I'm not pulling your leg. I'm not deceiving you. First drink on me at Beer Garden in Boca Raton. Thank you to Robes Law Group Personal Injury Lawyers, our title partner of the Florida Atlantic Voice. We can't do any of this. Live shows, podcast, being out on location without Robes Law Group personal injury lawyers, ROBES, robeslawgroup.com, robeslawgroup.com. Make sure you check them out for all of your personal injury matters, including the Robes Law Group app, the Robes Law Group Shield, where after an accident, all you have to do is log on to the app. There you can document all the information there. There's just going to be a series of questions so you can, while your mind is fresh, just make sure that you're recounting what took place, because that is going to help you in a big way with not only personal injury lawyers, Robes Law Group, but also your insurance company as well. Robes Law Group, always trying to make your life easier, and representing you, Robes Law Group, robeslawgroup.com, ROBES, robeslawgroup.com. Want to thank Robbie, Lastella, New Era Preps, for coming on as always here on this day after edition post UAB here on the Florida Atlantic Voice. We'll do it again next Sunday. After that, 7:30 kickoff in Tampa, FAU and USF. Want to thank all of you for watching live. Want to thank all of you who are going to listen or have listened to the Florida Atlantic Voice podcast. Please subscribe. I'm begging you, please subscribe wherever you get your podcast, the Florida Atlantic Voice, because if you miss this on Twitter or miss this on YouTube, you're driving. I don't want you watching this while you're driving. It's perfect for your next road trip or your commute to work. The podcast edition of the Florida Atlantic Voice. Same thing we're doing here, but for your ears. Wherever you get your podcast, just subscribe. It comes right to your phone, and you don't have to seek it out post recording of this either. So thanks for being a part of this. Thanks for watching / listening. Thanks for jumping into the chat. We're going to talk to you Monday Night Live from Beer Garden in Boca Raton, 6 o'clock Eastern Time. I am Ken LaVicka. This has been the Florida Atlantic Voice, presented by Robes Law Group, personal injury lawyers. Bye-bye.